We are just finishing up now. One second, let me just make sure it's quiet here. Okay. So we're just going to finish up now, just the last little bit of Torah Ches, and then start Torah Tes. So we're holding Mamish close to the end of Torah Ches, very close to the end. It's in subsection Tes at the very, very end, where it quotes almost the end, where it quotes on Tehillim, Reichav Elikim Rebbesaim Alfei Shinon. And it is, if you're using the regular Likutei Moharan print, like the old standard print, it's on Daf Yid Aleph Amud Beis, at the very top. So it says, it quotes in Tehillim, Reichav Elikim Rebbesaim Alfei Shinon, right, which is, Pushim B'Shad is talking about the Maluchim, and it says that the Reichav Elikim, like Hashem's Merkava, consists of Rebbesaim Alfei Shinon. Rebbesaim means 10,000, 10,000s, right? Because Revoy is 10,000, and Alfai means thousands. So 10,000, 10,000s, thousands of Shinon. So whatever number that comes out to, which is a lot. And Shinon is a name of the Maluchim. Some Sfurim, even like the Merkava Sfurim, count Shinanim from the story of Shinon as one of the classes of Maluchim, where it says that there's 10 different classes of Maluchim. The Rambam also has a list of 10 classes of Maluchim. A lot of Sfurim do, and they differ. There's different variants in exactly which Maluchim, what the 10 classes of Maluchim are. But this is one of them anyway. So but Nachman is learn it slightly differently, and he says, Alfai, which we usually learn that means thousands, right? It says that's Bechinas Alifai Aisav, because Alfai is related to the word Alifai, like masters or kings or rulers. These are going to be the kings or the rulers of Aisav. We're going to soon connect it because this connects to the Torah that we learned last week. So I'm just going to, as we see it, I'm going to explain it. It says, Al Reichav Elikim Rebbesaim, through the Bechina of Hashem's Merkava, Rebbesaim, which is 10,000s. He says that's Bechinas Kabbalah Torah. That's, because this whole Tilim is talking about Kabbalah Torah, that all these Meluchim came down at Kabbalah Torah. So this means Kabbalah Torah. Shemesham Mekablam Riachayim Harabunim de Kedisha, because the Torah is where the Rabbunim of Kedisha get their Riachayim. Because remember, this whole Torah is based, the whole Torah Ches is based on the idea that there's a certain Riachayim, a certain life force that the Torah gives to the Tzaddikim. The Tzaddikim can be mashpiyah out the people that connect to them, and that helps them with their shortness of breath, which means their tsar, and allows them to breathe deeply, which is the relief from the tsar. And but then we have, like you spoke before about the Rav of Klippa, the Rebbe on the side of Klippa, which he actually openly said that refers to the Misnagdim, and he said that they have a Rav of Klippa, whoever he might mean by that. I don't want to even think about it, right? And they derive their other koyach from him, and he gets it from this bechina of Aisav, which is from the Klippa itself, right? So he says that the Reichav Elikim Rebbesaim, that represents the Torah, which that's where the Tzaddikim get the Riachayim from. He says Valdei Alfei Shinan, and then through Alfei Shinan, he says, that this would go, this Alpha Shinan we would learn, like the way Chazal learn it, Alter Shinan Ela Sha'ainan. Don't read Shinan, which should just be the name of this type of malach. Ela, you should read Sha'ainan, that they are not. It says, Hain al de Kabbalah Torah, through connecting to the Torah, Shesham Hariach Darav de Kedisha. That's where the Rebbe of Kedisha gets his koyach from. Alazain is batlim v'nechnuim alifa Aisav. That's how we're mevatel the koyach of the people of Aisav, Rav Aisav, and the Rabbunim of Aisav. Shem bechinas harav de Klippa, which are from the Rav of Klippa. And bechinas Alfa Shinan, that's Alfa Sha'ainan, and they're the Alfa Sha'ainan. Sha'alifa Aisav, Rav Aisav, is batlim v'ainan. These koyachs of Aisav are butel, and they are as if they are not. So in other words, we would read the sentence, we would read the pusik, Reichav Elikim Rebbesaim, through the union of the Torah and Kabbalah Torah, which was this event of the Maluchim coming together, through that Torah, Alfai Sha'ainan, the koiches of the Alifa Aisav, which is the Rabbunim of not Kedusha, cease to exist. Okay, so that's another remiss to that. And now he quotes another pusik, which is going to relate to this. So he says, Miknafu Uretz, it is a quote from Yeshaya. Miknafu Uretz Zmiris Shemani, this is a beautiful piece that refers to, Pushim Shad refers to the idea of Bias Mashiach, right? It says, from the corners of the earth, Zmiris Shemani, we heard singing, Tzvi Tzaddik, and they were singing Tzvi Tzaddik, glory should be to the Tzaddik. That's in this context, Tzvi is glory. V'oimer, and I said, Ruzili, Ruzili, the secret is to me, the secret is to me. Oili boigdim bogdi, v'beged boigdim bogdi. And oivai is to me that I see that boigdim is like tricksters, bogdi have tricked, v'beged boigdim bogdi, and the tricksters themselves were tricked. So Pushim Pshat is talking about the idea that there's going to be the simcha and this song when Mashiach comes, and Tzvi Tzaddik Pushim would go on Mashiach, right? And Yeshai Novi is saying, Ruzili, Ruzili, I have a secret over here, I get what's happening. And then he is saddened by the fact that those people that were tricksters, that tried to trick Hashem, pretend they were tzaddikim, they get what they deserve. So they themselves are tricked. That's Pushim Pshat. Then Rebbe Nachman learn a little bit differently, of course, Al Pi chassidus. So he says, Miknaf ha'ura, this idea from the corners of the earth, Zay bechinas kanfei hatzitzis, that's a remus to the corners of the tzitzis. Because this symbolic image of the four corners of the world, of course we know the world isn't flat. Right? We don't belong to the flat earth society. Right? But the fact that but it's represented symbolically that way. There's all these psikim that say like Hashem is going to pick up the corners of the earth and shake off the Rishuim, like we saw before, last week's Torah, last week's shtickle. And but the idea is that these corners of the earth represent the corners of the tzitzis, Shesham Riyach Chaim, which that is also connected to that Riyach Chaim, like you connected that before. The tzitzis itself is also a symbol of this Riyach Chaim, because he said that the idea of the tzitzis is connected to the idea of breath. And he brought psikim like this, like there's going to be a riyach from the Arba Kanfei Seura, that symbolizes the idea of the riyach from the kanfes of the tzitzis. The tzitzis actually have this spiritual energy, which cause a person to relieves the person's tsar to a certain extent. So he says, "She bechinas kinder shel Dovid shoya menagen al dayariach tzefoinus," which is the bechina of Dovid's harp, which we talked about this before, which blows with a riach. Right, and the riach tzefoinus really means a north wind, but he said that means a hidden wind, because tzefon can also mean hidden. Right, kanal. And he says, and now here, this is important, this next piece here, because he's talking about Nagina here, about song. So I'm sure Rabbi Yisrael is going to connect to this, and anyone here who's musical, right? Because there's a few shticklich where we see the power of music. Rabbi Yisrael. So it says, Ki Nagina v'hazmiris, the idea of song or melody and zmiris and singing songs, that comes from that life force, that life breath, which is in the lungs, right? Which is actually a very powerful concept. In a sense, singing is actually a breathing technique, right? Because song, the way to make song is going to have to do with taking certain depth of breaths, right? Taking deep breaths, and then emitting it in a certain measured sort of a way. So these naginim, especially naginim of Kedusha, have within themselves a breathing technique, which can help the person also calm down from his challenges and his anxieties. Right? This is what he says here, that the nagina originates in the lungs, which there is that life breath. Right? And it says V'zehi Zmiris Shamani. That's the idea that Yeshai says that we heard Zmiris, this bechinas nigin shel kinner shel David. This is the nigin, the song of David's harp. She bechinas Riyach Chaim, which that in and of itself symbolizes that life force, that life breath. She bechinas kanfei tzitzis, which is connected to the tzitzis. Bechinas knaf ha'uretz, which is the idea of the corners of the earth. So here you have technically a remez, and potentially maybe, especially for a yid, the song might be more effective he's wearing tzitzis, because those two things correspond to the same bechina. It says, "V'al deizei machnin harishum," and through this we have the power to bring down and to subjugate the rishuim, because the idea is, because we know that we know this concept that zmiris is from an expression of zamir, which means to cut. Right, the zmiris have the power of cutting down and annulling the forces of evil, which is why Chassidim put such a big emphasis on zmiris. Right, so through song we have the ability to be machnia, to bring down the rishuim, to subjugate the rishuim. The bechinas, which is the bechina of lacha is bekan. Oh, here he quotes this, what you mentioned before. Lacha is bekan for zeuretz v'niri rishum many. Like Kivyuch, like Hashem can pick up the corners of the earth and shake off the rishum from the corners of the earth. So the corners of the earth are the bechina of the tzitzis, right? Because that's the four corners. And the idea of shaking off the rishum is because this bechina of tzitzis can shake off the Yetzirah like we had before, and also the idea that tzitzis is associated with Zriyach Chaim, which is Zriyach Chaim is associated with the breath in the lungs, which is associated with song. So therefore, with song too, we can bring down the Rishuim. So he says v'zehi, and that's what it means, tefillah tzaddik, right? That it says over there in Yeshaya that the song consists of the words tefillah tzaddik, which really means glory to the tzaddik. So Perish Rashi explains over there on Yeshaya, usid liyos matzayvois kimas koimala tzaddikim. There will be, in that time when Mashiach comes, there will be a raising up of the form of the tzaddikim, which means, he doesn't explain what it means. But the idea is that push-up shot. The idea is that until then the tzaddikim were not really respected and people didn't really take them seriously. And then when Mashiach comes, there's this bechina that then the tzaddikim will be taken seriously. That's like they get to rise up, right? That's push-up shot in Rashi. But the Nachman explains, Haina Kanal, this is like we referred to before, Kidai Riyach Chaim. Through this Riyach Chaim, Hanal, this life breath that we talked about, Mizgaber na Tzadikim al Rishum, that the Tzadikim can have the strength to rise up over the Rishum Kanal. Zehi, and that's what it means, as it continues in the Pusik, V'oimer Ruzi Li, which a secret is to me, and then it says Oili, then it says he has Tsar, because of this idea of the beged boigdi. By the way, just there, Hagav, this is you find it a lot of times in Yeshaya, these like tongue twisters of these very short expressions. So of course all the Mefarshim have different ways of learning what it means. But he says over here, the Rashi says, Perish Rashi, what does it mean? Ruzi li, the secret is to me. Perish Rashi explains, Shenigli li shnai ruzim. Since he says it twice, Ruzi li, so that implies that two secrets were revealed to him. And what are they? He says one is Raz Pirunyos. One is the secret of the Pirunyos, of the punishments, in the sense that Yeshaya saw that at that time everyone's going to get what they deserve, right? And exactly how that's going to happen. And then Veruz Yeshia, and also the secret of the Yeshia, the secret of the Geilah. Right, so Yeshaya saw these two secrets. Varai, Tircha Kayeshia ad v'chili, and he doesn't finish. He doesn't quote it till the end. Where he says that the Yeshia will be delayed, right? And I guess he means the Yeshia will be delayed until finally it happens. The boiged, that the tricksters who trick will themselves be tricked. So he says but anyway. So Nachman explains. Haini Kanal. This is what we talked about before. Riach shel harusha. That the riach, that energy that the evil person has, is very powerful in its time, in the sense that while it's going, it's even stronger than the riach of the tzaddik, like we said. Because it's like a whirlwind. And that koyach of the rusha, and then the fact that the rishum have more koyach temporarily, is the reason why, for all the difficulties that we're having, and why our gulas is so long. And that's what it means, the last part of the sentence, the last part of the pusik. That the energy, the koyach of the boigdim, of the tricksters, which means the rishuim, the harushuim, he says, interestingly, he says that their koyach comes from a pagam in begudim, which means the hind pagam hatzitzis, shem bekanfai beged. Right, this refers to pagam and tzitzis, in the sense that we said that tzitzis is the source of the riach chaim, right? So therefore, the source of the riach of klippa would be the opposite of that, which is a pagam in tzitzis that are not kosher, or the tzitzis that there's an issue with. So he says, second, I lost the place. Right. So it's the haini mipagam adal disoidus, which what does it mean pagam and the tzitzis? It doesn't mean just necessarily just the tzitzis are puzzle. It also means the pagam and the dal disoidus, the pagam and the four elements, which are the source of the midas of a person, like you explained before. Right? Sheachizusan v'sharsham elyon ibe chinas dal tzitzis, that the source of the four elements is that level in Shemaim, which is the four tzitzis, which means, of course, the four oasis of Havaya. Right? So that's the source of all midas. And then the Rishum get their koyach. It's interesting because it's like a paradox. That instead of getting their koyach from the side of Kedisha of the four midas, they actually get their koyach from the midas ruas they have, the bad midas that they have. Right? Because that itself connects them to the klippa. And the klippa is a short-term, very powerful energy source. So because of that, they're matzliach. I will soif called soy, but in the end, and I quote the rest of the pusuk of Yishai, which you didn't quote before, pachad v'pachas v'pach aleichu yoshev uras. There will be fear and like dirt and dirt upon you, the dweller of the land. So in the end, in other words, he's learning this goes on the Rishum. In the end, they're going to have their mapula at the end. It says Kikol Rishuim Yichri v'Yipoili. At the end, all the Rishuim will be brought down and knocked down. Kilesoif Kulo v'Nevad v'Chili. Because at the end, I guess there's also a quote from there that they will be finished off and destroyed. Right? Because like you explained before, that Riach Aro, that energy that the Rishuim have is very, very powerful in its time, but it's temporary. And once it's worn out, they'll be worse than before. Right? Tzadikim goimrim, tzadikim gmirim, that the real tzadikim, machniyim also can be machniya, can bring down the Rishuim. The mashpilim Rishuim ad the and knock down the Rishuim to the earth. Al der riachayim shalayim, through their riachayim. Shebechinas tzitzis, which is the tzitzis. Bechinas meknaf urat zmiris emai, which is the bechina of the zmiris, which are from the knaf urat, which is the tzitzis. Okay. So now he goes back to Dovid, right? Kinar shel chomesh nimen. He said this before. He quoted this, that the Zohar says that the harp that Dovid had 5 strings. So I'm not sure how many strings a standard harp has. I don't know, but I guess there must be different types, I guess, right? But Dovid's harp, it says, had 5 strings. So he brought down before the Zohar that the Zohar says this and says those are connected to Chimshay Torah. So he says here, he quotes again this Kinur Shal Chomesh Nimen, this harp of 5 strings David had, Bechinas HaTorah, which is the Torah, Kain Kosub Zohar, like the Zohar says, the Tofsai HaTorah, Ilain the Tofsan Bechinoira. It says the ones that grab onto the Torah are like the people that grab onto the harp and play the harp. So Zohar makes that connection between the Torah and music, which is also interesting, right? Because if you think about it, in the whole idea of the Chimish Torah, we know, the Rizal tells us, we see this in the Kavunas of what's it called? Kavunas of Hoshana Rabbah, where over there we there's this minig of reading Mishnah Torah, reading the last book of the Torah, Sefer Dvurim, on what's it called? On Hoshana Rabbah night, right? You have this idea of reading Devurim, and over there the Rizal explains the whole concept that the 5 books of the Torah are connected to Shiras Pesach V'Tfilas Neitzach and Hoy. And he says that really be'emes there should be 7 books of the Torah, because we know that you have Chagas Neitzach Hoy, and then you really have Yesod and Malchus, which include them together. So the Rizal explains that be'emes that Sefer Devurim contains the Yesod and Malchus too. So be'emes the Torah it really consists of 7 concepts, the 7 lower spheres, which is their anpin, because that's what we always hear from the result that the Torah is bechinas their anpin, and Vayomer Hashem, Vaydaber Hashem in the Torah always refers to their anpin, right? But then you have that's connected, like the Zohar connects the 7 lower spheres to the 7 notes of music, right? So music is actually connected very much to the union of Torah, and that's why Chazal tell us, like the Gemara says, that the Torah is supposed to be a song. I mean, that's not really what the Gemara says. The way the Gemara presents it, it's like a kasha. The Gemara asks, like, what, the Torah is just a song? Right? But the chassidus Sforim actually take that very seriously. and say, yes, the Torah is a song, right? And there was a lot of emphasis, like in Baba, there was a lot of emphasis when the Baba Rav Zechariah Vrucha used to come into the Masifta and check the Bukhram, he would listen to how they're learning. And if they would just be saying the words, he'd tell them you have to sing it. It has to be with the melody, right? Because it's very much connected. So anyway, so he says over here, okay, so he brought this Indian that the Torah is connected to music, and then he quotes from the Gemara in Chilin, "Hai oinai is li raya." The Gemara in Chilin over there goes into a lot of detail about the anatomy of the animal body and the human body, and it says over there that the lungs have 5 lobes, and we know this because you know this also nowadays, right? That one of the lungs has 2 lobes, and the other lung has 3 lobes. A total of 5 lobes to the lungs. So he explains what. So this is going to be connected because the lungs are connected to music, and to riach, and to breath, and they have 5 lobes connected to the chemish Torah and the 5 strings on David's harp. Right. So it's amazing how these things are all connected. It says kiriach hachayim hi beharai, because that riach chaim, that life breath, is in the lungs. Imisham hamshuchas hariach shalanocha kidia. And the lungs are where that sigh comes from. When a person has anxiety, he gives it like a sigh. That comes from the lungs, right? It says Al-Kain, Isla Hai Oinai Yirai, and that's why the lungs have 5 lobes. Connected the 5 books of the Torah, and the Hai Nimin, the Kin of the David, and the 5 strings of David's heart. Shesham Riach Chaim, that's where the Riach Chaim comes from. It says Ein B'Tikinim, look in Tikinoi Zoyar, it says in Tikin Yid, where it says Kanfai Mitzvah inin Hai Kishurin. He says that the Kanfai Mitzvah, the tzitzis, have 5 knots. Since we have 5 knots, right, on each of the strings. Well, yeah, 5 knots on each of the strings. And he says that, and the Zohar says this is Lekabel Shema. This is Keneged. He doesn't quote the whole thing, but the Zohar says over there, this Tikkun Zohar, that's Keneged. The Ois is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elikaini Hashem. Right, the first 5 words of the Shema. And he says the Inan, which means the Kabel, Hai Nimen, the Kinna, which means to make the Kabel, the 5 strings of David's harp. And of course, you know that the Shema is called the entire Torah. That's why that's what we put in our mezuzahs. Right, the Chazal tells that. So this is all connected in a very beautiful way. Okay, and he says Gam Ayin B'Hashmutas Zohar. Look also in the additions to or the omissions from the Zohar. Okay, so that's Torah Ches. So let's start Torah Test now. This is a very nice one too. And this talks about Parnusa, which is really important. Because we all need Parnusa. So it says over here, Test, he says, he quotes the Pusik, Tehoimas Yechasimi Yardim Soilois. Right, this is in the Shira, where it says that the Mitzrim were covered by the depths, and they went down into the depths of the sea. So he says like this, Ki Ikar Achiyas Mekablim Mehat Tefillah. Our Iker life force comes from our tefillah, right? Because the tefillah is literally every Jew's most easily accessible spiritual expression, right? And that literally is a life force, which that's our lifeline, right? It's the tefillah. It's k'moshe like it says in the Pusik, tefillah kal chai. The tefillahs go up to Hashem, to kal chai, in the sense that the tefillahs that we daven are a connection to Hashem, and Hashem is our life force, right? Hashem is Atam Achai is Kilam. Hashem gives life to everything. So if we have that direct pipeline there, then we get that life force. And he says, B'shvil zeh, tzurich lispal b'kol koiche, because this, a person has to daven with his entire strength. Now, most people unfortunately can't do this because in most shuls, if you do this, they would throw you out. And in other shuls, maybe they wouldn't throw you out, but they'd look at you like you're crazy, right? So I mentioned this before. The Rebbe Nachman talks about in Likutei Sichos, talks about the idea that you can yell in your mind. And he says that if you're in a place or a time where you can't actually yell in your mind, even though you're saying the words in a normal voice, and that's already effective, right? So sometimes you have to do this. But if we're davening by ourselves, I mean, now basically most shuls, at least in my area, are open already, so people are davening with minyan. Daven by yourself, then it's even better. Right? But he says you have to daven with your entire strength. This goes with this general klal that I always say, and I think this is such an important klal in Yiddishkeit. Lefim tzara agra, literally. The more energy you put into something, the more you get out. It's like in science, right? The more energy in is the more energy out. The more input is more output. It's clear, right? So the idea is that if a person does any sort of a mitzvah, whether it's davening or learning or whatever it is, right? If he does it like, like without necessarily putting energy into it, he does it just, yoitzit he does it just to fulfill his obligation, right? Then he's not going to get as much out of it. It's not going to be as much energy there, which comes out. There's not going to be as much shefa that comes down to him. And if he's davening, then his tefillahs won't necessarily be as accepted. The person puts his entire koyach, his entire energy into the tefillah, then that tefillah will have a much, much greater power, and it'll be able to rise up much higher, and hopefully be poil for the person what he needs. So that's what Nachman says. It's so important the person should daven with his entire energy, with his entire being. It's like you come into Shil and have in mind when you're coming to Shil, you're going to the Bais Elokim, you're coming into Hashem's house, and then do everything mindfully and meaningfully. And put on your gartel, like wear a gartel, put on your talis, everything mindfully, and feel that or makif of the talis around you, and put on the tefillin mindfully, and then start saying the words and have the words in mind and what the words mean, right? And don't let things distract you. And if things distract you, don't get frustrated. Just say, okay, that's just the thought. Let it pass. Then go back to the tefillah, right? And do it mindfully and meaningfully, and that way you'll get the most out of your tefillah. Right? So he says, when a person davens with his entire energy, his entire being, then he puts his energy, he puts his neshama into the words of the tefillah that are going up. And then his koich will be renewed, Sham. Because the idea is that those tefillahs, if he's putting his neshama into those tefillahs, and those tefillahs are going up to Hashem, then when they get up to Hashem, they're renewed there, right? Because that's the source of the energy. Then when they come back down to him, which pashtus happens after Shon Esrei by Tachanan, that's when it starts coming back down. Then he actually gets his neshama renewed and refreshed, right? Which gives a new strength. The bechinas, and this is the bechina of what it says, and he says in Aicha chadushim lebkurim rabam and eseichu, that they're renewed. Pushim Shad, the Chazal tells us chadushim lebkurim means that every morning when we wake up, because the same concept is happening when we sleep, right? This is so funny for those people like Rebbe Kiva, who's been by all of the shirim this week. We've had like the same concept coming up in every single shir. It's so interesting because this connects back to the idea of sleep, which sleep is the idea of the neshama going up, right? Because that's what the Zohar Kodesh tells us. When we sleep, our neshama leaves our body and goes up to the malchus of Atzilus, and then our neshama comes back down, all renewed and refreshed. And Chazal tells us that's the meaning of Chadushim LeBekurim. Rabba Nesayich is the idea that Rabba Nesayich, because we have to have faith, Hashem will return our neshamas to us, right? Because Chas v'shalom, it doesn't always happen that the neshama comes back when a person sleeps, right? And it's Rabba Nesayich, but then it's Chadushim LeBekurim, we're renewed in the morning through the fact that our neshamas come back in through sleep. And we talked about that's why sleep is important. And we mentioned on the shirim that the Rizal connects sleep to the idea of getting moichin. So if a person wants to get an expanded consciousness, wants to get moichin the godless, wants to have more connection to Hashem, he should be well rested, because that sleep actually renews and refreshes the neshama, which is in the mind. But if Nachman is now here being mechadash, this doesn't only go on sleeping and to refresh the neshama, but it goes on tefillah itself. Because in tefillah itself, through the tefillah, like take shachars. Shachars is the most simple one. Where through the 4 sections of tefillah we go up to all the way to Atzilus, right? Because the karbonis are asiyah. So now we're going up through Elam asiyah slowly, and the Rizal explains in the karbonis itself how it's a ladder. It rises up through asiyah, right? And then you have the Psik of the Zimra where we're rising up through Yitzira, and then you have the Birkas Krishma where we're rising up through the Bria, and then by Shon Esrei we're at Atzilus already. So if we just say the words blah 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 blah, yes, it does something. Our neshamas didn't go up with those words because you didn't infuse the words to our neshamas because we were thinking about baseball or whatever it may be, right? but if we have it in mind and we do it with kol koicha and we put our whole energy into the tefillahs and the neshama gets infused into the tefillah, then we're actually going up. So then after Shemona Esrei, we're by Tachanin and Ashrei and Dus and Shir Shel Yoim and what's it called and Ein Kalakaini and Olaini, we're going back down again, back to Asiya, back to here, right? So then when we were in the Tzilis, our neshamas got refreshed there. So now we get that refreshment, just like through sleep when the neshama goes up, we get refreshed. So through the tefillah that happens, and the Rebbe Nachman's mechadish this. I don't know if there's any other place where this is stated so clearly. So he says ki amina, but it says Rabba min seichel. So Rabba min seichel is very good. When we're talking about sleeping and we're afraid we won't get up in the morning. Then it's good to talk about Hashem's trustworthiness to bring our neshamas back. If we're learning about tefillah, what's the Rabba min seichel? What does the min have to do with anything? So he explains ki amina hi tefillah, because amina is tefillah. And this is something he discussed in the previous Torah also, or 2 Torahs ago, with Torah Zion, I think. Where he talks about the idea of tefillah, and he says that tefillah has very much to do with a minna, because think about it. Tefillah is something that they can't work without a minna, right? Because, like, ask a goy, ask a, what's it called, an atheist, if the tefillah does anything. They say, of course not. We'll tell him, well, sometimes we daven when someone was very sick and he got better. They'll say, yeah, he got better because it happened to be that he got better. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that you were standing in the synagogue and saying words. Right? That's what he would tell you. Right? So because of that, tefillah is inherently connected to a minna. We have an minna that Hashem can break the natural order. Or really be'emes, salpi amkas, not just to break the natural order, but there really is no natural order. It's just an illusion of a natural order. And really everything is hashgochas Hashem. Right? Like if anyone looks at in Likutei Halachas, where Rebbe talks about the Tilas Yadayim, over there he goes into this whole concept in great detail. That believing in chance and happenstance, believing in the natural order of the world, and it actually retracts a person's rachnius, because then a person lacks the minute, because he starts thinking of everything as cause and effect. Then what are my words that I say in this shul do, right? So a minna is inherently connected with tefillah. And also we have this concept, like I mentioned before in Sfurim, that it says in Sfurim too, that the amount of a minna that person has is going to affect how his tefillah is niskabel. Which is why, since we all have an assign in a minna, right? Because everyone does, and it's normal to have an assign in a minna. So you're never going to get, pashtus, a person wouldn't get answered if he asks to win the lottery, or he asks, to just find $1 million on his doorstep, or whatever it is. Really, that tefillah could work if he really had the minna that it would work, right? But since most of us don't, then it won't work. So they say in Eitzah, daven for things in a way that you believe that could actually happen in reality. So daven, you should be tzliach in your job, or daven, you should find a new job. Something that's not going to shock and surprise you, because that kind of a thing is enough that you have enough a minute that could happen. Right? But if a person really has true aminah, he could ask for anything in this tefillah, and it would happen. Right? So that's the concept. So anyway, so he says, he said, this is like the Pusik says, the Yud of Aminah, he's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu at the Milcham with Amulek. It says his hands were a minna. We had this, the Nachman quoted this before too, I think also in Torah Zion, right? So what does it mean his hands were a minna? The Targum says, Prishin Betzli, they were raised in prayer. So we see the connection of a minna and tefillah, right? And Abnusam brings us in that shtickle into Sedayim too, which I mentioned in Likutei Halachas. Okay, so then in Bais now he says, V'da, you should know, Shashid Bais Shvutim. There is 12 Shvutim, Kneged Yid Bais Mazulas, which are connected to the 12 Mazulas, the 12 constellations, and that means, of course, the constellations of the months, which in this context, Yiddishkeit would totally correlate and correspond with Lahavdil, with the way that the Goyim say it, because all those mazulas that the Goyim have, the reason Derech Hagav why you have it's so random in the sense that in the Goy Shavelt, you have that the what's it called, the constellations begin in the middle of the month, right? You have what's it called, like Taurus begins in the middle of the month and Gemini begins in the middle of the month, is because it actually comes from Yiddishkeit, and it comes really from the Yiddish Chadushim, which didn't correlate with the Goyish months. But so we would go with our months, and each of the months would be connected with a different mazel, different astrological sign, right? And those are connected to 12 Shvutim. So he says, nischa miyachedus, and each Shavet has its own nisach tefillah. Something quoted before also. That they all had their own special way that their tefillahs went up. So every Shavet has its own nisach. That every Shavet has its own special gate in Shemayim that their tefillahs go through. And he says, Likuna is derech sham tefillusa, that his tefillah can go through there. The kol Shavet me'oire bet tefillusa koyach mazloi shebishnayim eisim azulas. And each Shavet, when he davens with his nisach, when they daven with their nisach, they awaken or activate the koyach, the energy of their sign, of their astrological sign, right, which corresponds to them. And then that mazel, that astrological sign shines below. They're haggav, like you see here, because I know people ask me a lot of questions about this, about like astrology is way the zura, this type of thing, right? Because the Rambam was very anti-astrology, but clearly the way we see it in all the Sfurim, in Sifrei Kabbalah and the Zohar and in the Rizal and everywhere, it's a simple assumption. This is an aspect of the way the world works and the way the Shefa comes down. You can look at the Ramchal and Derech Hashem. The Ramchal over there discusses it and just says that's part of the system. In other words, you have the Ein Sof at the top, right? And Kivyuch, we're looking at it as up to down. Look at it as in to out, or whatever, however you want to look at it. But the idea is that first you have the Ein Sof. And the Ein Sof emanates the spheres, so you have then the spheres. And that koyach of Hashem passed through the spheres of Atzilus, the spheres of Bria, and the spheres of Yitzir, and the spheres of Asiya. And finally, when we get to that, Malchus of Asiya, which is our world, so there you have those 12 constellations, which are the final destination that Shefa passes through to come down, right? So it's only about, like the Rizal says, it's only about the Zur if you think that the koyach of those mazulas are their own koyach, which they have independent of Hashem. But you realize they're part of a system. They're like the faucet of an elaborate water system, right? Which is just where the water comes out. So literally, when we daven, that energy that's coming down through tefillah is going to come through mazulas. It's going to come through those constellations, and that's not a problem at all to say that, because that's just the last part of the system, right? So each Shavat, when they daven, they awaken their mazel and sort of open up that faucet and allow that energy to come down. Oh, I just noticed all these chats now. Oh, okay. The first thing's old, and then filters. Yeah, they're like filters, exactly. Right? They're like filters of that aura that comes down. So each Shavat, when they daven, they awaken their mazel. Okay. So he says, and this mazel, what does this mazel do? Migadol hatzemach. And what do these mazulas do? They cause a sprouting and a growth, in the sense that the person gets whatever he needs. It's like it sprouts for him. And everything else that he needs. And the reason why he's using the illusion of sprouting is because he's soon going to bring down this idea that the Chazal tell us that even every blade of grass has a mazel that tells it to grow. Right, so you have this concept. The mazulas really are the essence of how the shefa comes down. So because of that, the mazulas are really going to affect exactly how much sprouting, how much growth, and how much goodness, and how much shefa a person gets. Right, so that's why he's using that illusion. And now it connects also to the pusik, where there's a pusik we just had last week's parsha, right, in Bulak, that says v'zay perish durach koichav miyakov. The star came from Yaakov, traveled from Yaakov. Becomes Shavet Miyisrael, and a staff, like a staff symbolic, push-up shot symbolic of like a staff of judgment, sprouted up from Yisrael, right, which is part of Bilam's Neviah. But he's learned totally differently. He says like this: become, and they got up, rose up. Zeh b'chinas Amida. That's the Amida, the Shmona Esrei, which we stand by the Shmona Esrei. B'chinas Tefillah, which that's Tefillah. Right, so that's come is tefillah, and he says, and then it says v'kom shayvet miYisrael. Shayvet also means the shvutim, right? So it says kishe shayvet miYisrael, when one of the shvutim from the Klal Yisrael oimed lispal stands to daven al dezem oyer koichav, right? That brings down the koichav, that activates that mazel he's connected with. A koichav hidoyrach, and that koichav travels through with makeh. And it whacks, it strikes the things that he needs, that they should grow, right? Like Chazal say, Einicho Eisav Milmata, there's no there isn't a single blade of grass. Shine like Koichav the Malach Milmala doesn't have a astrological sign or a Malach above. Shemak Oisei that hits it, the sense that wakes it up sort of, or Emily Gadal and tells it grow. Right, so here we have this is actually a very beautiful touch in this pusik. So in other words, let's just go back to the pusik and just explain it. Durach koichav miyakov, a koichav means an astrological sign, means one of those filters of Hashem's or travels from Yaakov. He doesn't claim what Yaakov means, but could be potentially means in the higher oilamas, which you have the Yaakov is B'chin Zer Anpin. Maybe that's what it means. That koichav travels down and manifests a certain koyach for the person. How does that happen? Come Shaivat Yisrael, when a Shaivat Yisrael, when one of the Shvutim stands up, the Daven Shmona Esrei, that brings down that koyach. That's how he learns it. Derech Agav, it's interesting just that the way he quotes this medrash here is this medrash was sort of censored because originally the original girsa was Aisav Malmata Shain like Koichav Malmala Shemak Aisav like Gadal. Originally it said that every single blade of grass has a star or an astrological sign that hits it and tells it to grow. And then like the censors didn't like that. I mean Jewish censors, not Goyish censors. Certain Rebbeim didn't like that because it seemed to advocate astrology. So they sort of changed Koichav to Malach. And so then that's not how it becomes better. And a Malach is what's hitting it and telling it to grow. But then actually Rebbe Nachman here is interestingly enough, it's like weaving the two girsas together. And he's saying, Koichav the Malach. Every single thing, every single blade of grass has a koyach, has a koichav, as a star, and a malach, which tells it to grow. Okay. So he says, this is what Chazal say. Kushim is a noise of Kikriyas Yamsef. Chazal tell us that Mezoinus Parnusa is as challenging as Kriyas Yamsef. Right? And of course, what does that mean? Because nothing's challenging for Hashem. Kriyas Yamsef also wasn't challenging for Hashem. Right? So what exactly is that supposed to mean? But okay, we'll see. And then it also says Kusha Zavigoy Kriyas Yamsef. And so to Shedichim, it says are as challenging as Kriyas Yamsef. So now the Rebbe is going to tell us it's not. It doesn't mean to say that it's as hard as Kriyas Yamsef because Kriyas Yamsef was hard for Hashem. He's going to say he's going to learn totally differently. Because why does it mention the Yamsef in these connections? He says, Ki Yamsef nikra lead by Kruin because the Yamsef actually split into 12 paths. Because I'll tell us that push-up shot or the way we learn to just split the one big path and all the Klal Yisrael went through. Chazal tells it actually split into 12 separate paths, connected by Shvutim, which is connected to Shvutim. So all of the Shvutim had their path that they went through the Yamsef, right? Derech Hag, I'll just say this now, because it's very nice. It's a very nice word that comes in sort of over here. Is the Arvei Nachal, one of the chassidus Forum, mentions that if it was split into 12 paths, the emes, unlike what most people think, they didn't actually cross the entire Yamsuf all the way through. They actually just made like a U, and they came out really on the same side, just further down. And so it comes out if there was 12 paths. So the middlemost path was very short. Next path was a little bit longer. So it took them a different length of time to get there. Right? So the Arvei Nachal tells us that everyone gets there wherever they need to get. They get there eventually, but depending on their path, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter. This is applied a lot of times to shidduchim, right? Sometimes a certain person goes on one shidduch and it's already his perfect match and he's happy, and another person has to go through a lot of shidduchim, right? But each of the paths eventually gets to the other side in the sense that no one should ever give up hope. But okay, anyway. So Beketzer, it splits into 12 paths, connect the 12 shvutim. And then he says, Ibnai Yisrael, betfilusam goimrim zeviga de kitchibrich shchintai. Through our tefillas, we make a zivik between Za and Nik of Atzilus, in the sense that there's the whole idea, like I mentioned, through our tefillas, move up to Atzilus. And basically what we're doing is the Nik, or Malchus of Atzilus, fell all the way down out of Atzilus, and aspects of her are down in all of the worlds. So as we start the tefillah, as we start Karbunas, then we raise up those aspects of her, and all the Nitzoitzes stick to that. So we bring up the Nitzoitzes too, not all of them, but a lot of them. We bring up through Asiya, through Karbunas. Then we bring up those Nitzoitzes and those aspects of the Nik up through Bria. I mean through Yitzira, through Pesach Zimra, and then up through Bria, through Birkas Kirishma. And finally we get her up to Atzilus. And the Shemona Esrei, the majority of the Shemona Esrei is preparing for the Zivik, so building her up and building up Zah to prepare the Zivik. And then by Sim Shulam, that's the Zivik itself, by Sim Shulam. And so that's really the focal point of the whole Shemona Esrei, because that's the finale, and that's the climax. That's that Zivik, which brings on the Shefa that we need. And then the Rizal tells us we take 3 steps back after Shemona Esrei. I'm not making this up. The Rizal says it to give them privacy, because now that you've created you've allowed them to be Mezavik, and really Be'emes is just in the last word Shulam that the Zivik happens. It doesn't even happen in the whole Sim Shulam. It happens at the very last word. So we cause that Zivik, then immediately we step back and we give Kaviyuchel Zan Nik their privacy. The Bechina Zivik, that Zivik has to be Bechishai, has to be silent and private. So we step back at that point. And then to the rest of the tefillah, to the end of the tefillah, we're bringing we're bringing that shefa that's the child of that zivig, bring that shefa down through the worlds until it finally gets to us by Yolaina Shabayach. Right. So basically, the idea is that we cause the zivig through our tefillah. K'moshe Kusik says, as it says, the pusik, Soili l'reichav aruvos, right? L'reichav aruvos. It says, give praise to the one that rides Aruvos. Aruvos is the highest of the 7 Rekiyas, the highest of the 7 heavens. And so he says, Roichav Aruvos, what's that? Who's the one that rides the heavens? Roichav do Kitshabrichi, that's Hashem. And Aruvos, what's Aruvos? The Shchinte, that's the Shechina. Because that's what he's riding on, Kiviyuchel. Like we have this mush a lot of times, a horse and a rider, the Rizal uses and the Zohar Kodesh uses to refer to the Bechina of Zivik. Because that's the way it appears in the Chitzoni's way. That's what it appears like, right? Like riding something. So that's it. So over here, this represents as zivig of Hashem, the kiviyuchel of Zah, and of the Shechina. So shenis arif ba kol gavna. And the reason why Malchus or Nik is called Aruvos, which Aruvos is a illusion of Iriv, of mixing together, because all the colors mixed within her. Because the idea is that Malchus is the lowest sphere. All the other spheres, each of which is represented by a different color, all come down and are included within her. So she includes all the colors, so everything's mixed up there. That's why she's called Aruvos. So she's Aruvos, and Zah is Roichav Aruvos. He says, Lefi hazivik shegoyim b'tfilusoi kain zoichel is a vigoy. So then he says that according to how much of a zivik you produce with your tefillah, so too is the zivik that you'll be zoiche to. So here you see it's very important for Bukhram to daven with a lot of koyach, because the better that they daven, the better shidduch they get, right? So that's basically the idea. So he says, "V'hat tefillah hamid b'is neschuos," and tefillah is 12 neschuos, like we learned. Vigach hazivig k'kriyas yamsev. That's why zivig is connected to kriyas yamsev, shem yid b'is, which is 12. V'gam yisruel mefanasim lavim shv'shamayim b'tfilusav. He says, and also we give energy to Hashem. This is the same thing, really. Right? That we give energy to Hashem through our tefillas, in the sense that we fuel that zivig up there. Like it says in the Pusik, we have done the Yaakov l'choik. There was the Aviyamidah was a solution of Amida, right? Of like the Shemona Esrei, and it's associated with choik. It says choik lishna de mazoina. Choik is the expression of mazoina, of parnusa. Ein Amida ala tefillah, and Amida is tefillah. Right, so the idea is that we sort of give mazoinus kaviyuchel, we give energy kaviyuchel to Zah and to Nik of Atzilus through our tefillahs. V'zei perish, and that's the perish of the pusik. Shamei doisav lechoik. Sorry, Shamei doisav. They kept his witness. Lechoik nosan lemoy, and they were given a choik. Right. So what does the witness mean? Idus. So idus zay tefillah. Idus is tefillah. Witness is tefillah. Like says in the pusik, shiftei ka idus le. I think it's missing something. Shiftika Idis Yisrul, I think the word is. Lohidas Hashem Hashem. Right? So the Shiftei Ka are the Shvutim, and they are connected to Idis, and that's Lohoidos. Right? So you see that Idis is connected with Lohoidos. So Idis is Tefillah. Right? And also, of course, we have the Shemona Esrei. The Shema is Idis that Hashem. Right? We say that's an Idis. Right? That's why the Ayin and the Dal are big. And Shema Yisrul. Right, because that's our idus, that's our witness that Hashem created the world, and so too tefillah is really an idus to that. Because why are you davening if Hashem doesn't isn't foreign as the world, doesn't give us what we need. Why are you davening then? Right? It must be that that's the idus, that's the very testimony that Hashem does govern the world, and there's Hashgacha Prutis. V'gam Amir Chazal. Chazal also say, Ein idus ele ba'amida. They say that idus, witness, testimony must be given standing in Bezdin. Right? And he says, V'amida is a tefillah, and the amida is tefillah. She'oni me'idim al achdisa, that we're ma'id, we do say idus on Hashem's achdus. V'kifi, she'mefarnes le'ov v'shemayim b'tchulusay, and according to how much shefa, or Elias man, or those ma'im nikvan, that energy that we bring up, according to how much energy we bring up to our tefillahs, that's how much parnusa we get. Right? So if a person needs parnusa, he needs to daven with more koyach. And that's what it means. Kushim is a noisav, Kriyas Yamsev, the Mezoinas are as challenging as Kriyas Yamsev, because Kriyas Yamsev is the Yid by Shvutim, which is the Yid by Niskos of Tefillah. And Haini Mezoinas is Chalak Yid by Shvilim. Mezoinas divided into these 12 sections. Lefi Yid by Tefillah, Shiftei Ka, through the 12 Niskos of Tefillah. But Tzurich Lezei, Zchis Good, we need a very big Zchis to this. Sheyizkei Udam Lahalos Tefillah Derech Shar HaShayach L'Shiftei. Because again, how does a person know that his Nisach HaTefillah is the one that's associated with his Shayvet? Right? So he says, because this need a big Zchis to have the right Shayvet. That's what Abba Newman said. B'kol Yemai Chayisi Mitztar Al Shnai Dvurim. The entire days of my life, there was two things that I was very careful about. Al Tefillah Shetai Subuch L'Mitusi. First of all, he said that my tefillah should be close, my davening should be close to my bed. That's what he said. And I think I learned pshat over there, Rashi learns over there that it means, not that he davened beside his bed, but it means that immediately when he woke up, he went to Bismedish to daven. But anyway, but this, so it says that it should be close to my bed. The davening should be close to my bed. So he explains, this is what we talked about, she's pal derech shar amate shaloi, because the word mita, bed, is the same word as mate, which means shayvet. So in other words, he wanted his tefillah should be close to the shayvet. He wanted that he should his tefillah should go up through that right shar, the shar of his shayvet. Because there's really 12 shvutim. Each one has a different gate that it goes through. Ispal al shaloi zach telusai v'matashloim. Daven, please let my tefillah be close to my shayvet. I shouldn't be daven with the wrong nisach. Derech Agav, just Nachman doesn't mention it here. But it's well known that the Chaim Vital said that the result in this tefillah is a shara koilo. So that's a shara that everyone's tefillahs can go up through, which is why Chassidim. Well, the truth is that isn't really Nisach Sfar. That's really the Nisach Idus Mizrach, really be'emes, the Sfardi Nisach, right? So then the idea was that the Chassidish Rebbes, the Chassidish Mekabulim, made Nisach Sfard. Nisach Sfard basically is like a compromise. They didn't want to totally change their Nisach and daven like Sfardim, because they had their Nisach Ashkenaz, which was ancient. But then they also wanted to have this Shara Koilel, to get into this gate where everyone can get through, which is the Nisach of the Rizal. So what they did was they sort of like blended it. And any place the Rizal had kavunas, they changed the Nisach to be like the Rizal's Nisach. Any place that there wasn't kavunas, they just kept it Nisach Ashkenaz. So it became like a sort of a compromise between the two. So this is why like Chassidish Poskim will tell a person who doesn't know which Nisach to daven, they should daven Nisach Sfar, because they have this concept that Nisach is the Nisach that is the gateway for everybody. And Nisach Ashkenaz is if you belong to whatever Shayvet Ashkenaz represents, which I don't know what Shayvet they represent. But anyway, that's just that little thing. So anyway, it says V'zei Lushin Mata, that's his expression of Mata or Mitta, right? Which is the same word, Shayvet and bed. He Mitta is Lushin Zivik, because Mitta, bed, is Lushin of Zivik, right? Like Chazal explain, when Chazal are talking about Zivik, they call it Mishamish Mitusa. He used his bed, right? It's Lushin Nikia, it's a pure way of speaking. But so the bed refers to Zivik. It says Kamama Sumachal Mitusi Shatai Nesina. This whole idea that he said that he wants his tefillah should be sumach close to his bed means that he wants his tefillah to be with the right nisach, because shayv means nisach. But it also means they want his tefillah should create the proper zivigim, because mit is also an expression of zivik. The mit he bechinas zivik. The gam mit he bechinas parnusa, and it's also bechin of parnusa. So again, zivik, parnusa, tefillah, right? All this connects together, right? That's also bechinas parnusa. Like the pasuk says, b'shivra luchem matilechem, that I broke their staff of bread. So you see the matzah is connected to lechem, to bread, which is mazoinus. Kid by matzahs, the 12 shvutim, goyimim zivig, they create a zivig, and they create a parnusa. Kusha Zaviga, and the idea of the Zivik being challenging, Kush Mazanaisav, an idea of the Mazonas being challenging, is because all these things are connected. Gamis Pala al Shifta, and he davened for his Shaivit, Shiyizki, Lishtai Shalchun, he should be Zaychat Lishtai Shalchun. Lishtai Shalchun, 2 tables means a person should have a good life in this world, and then a good Elohim Haba too. Because Vizay, and that's what it means, Al Mitusi, that he davened for his bed, right? This is the second thing that he said he was makar about. His bed should be between north and south. Chazal say, haroitze lahachkim, haroitze lahashir. It says that if you want to have chokhmah, then you should face to when you're facing east, when you're facing mizrach by tefillah, you want chokhmah. It says you should face a little bit to the south. And if you want ashirs, if you want wealth, you should face a little bit to the north. So some people like daven they sway side to side, but they get a little bit of both, right? But that's what he's really talking about over here too, because he's saying here that you want these shtai shachunas, you want to be able to have both. The ashiris is going to help you in this world, and the chachma is going to help you in learning and so on for the next world. So you want both of those, right? And that's the idea that he wanted his bed to be between north and south, that he wanted both of those bechinas. And he says v'Yaakov. And Yaakov represents all the 12 shvutim together. You know what? Okay, let's try to finish. We're a little over time. Let's just finish this quickly. Yaakov is called all the 12 shvutim. By idea, and it's known that kol matav b'shosha, that each shayvit has a certain shoyrish in Shemayim. B'shvil zeh ksiv, because this it says by Yaakov it says. Yasav Yaakov Raglav Elamita. When Yaakov was very old, it says that he put his feet into the bed, right? So it says Raglav. He says that also represents tefillah. The feet also represent tefillah. Like it says in the pasuk, Tzaddik the fun of Yahaloch, the tzaddik walks before you, and that's a bechin of tefillah because the tzaddik is davening, and it's connected to walking, which is connected to the feet. Which direction is the head on the bed? Good question. If it's facing north to south, probably on the south, I would say. That would make more sense. Okay, but anyway. So this Hainish Shemassiv. So the idea is that he collects kolat tfilis. That's the idea of Yasav Yaakov Ragel V'Lamita. He collected. Yasav is a expression of collecting all of the tfilis to the mitta, to the right mat, to the right shayvit. Right, that's what he's going to say. He put all the tefillahs in their correct place. He also had the koyach to give certain energy to Yosef. Like it says, I'm giving you one shchem above your brothers. What Yaakov said to Yosef. What's shchem? It explains. Which pshat is a city, right? Or there's two pshatim there, right? Rashi brings both. But he says ki al dai tfilusay haya mashpia chiyas the called shloisha chelkei olam that through his tefillah he was mashpia energy to all the 3 sections of the world, which are shem olam hashofel, which are the physical, the low world. Olam hashofel is our world. Olam hakoychov, and you have the world of the koychavim, which is space, right? The cosmos. You have olam hamalachim, and above that you have the world of the malachim. Right, so he says Zay Shayvet. That's what Shayvet. That Zay Shchem. That's what Shchem is. Shchem is Rosh Taiva's Shofel, the lower world. Koichav, the world of the stars, and Malach, the world of the Maluchim. He calls Zay Zucha Alei Tefillah. All this he was zoiche to be mashpia through his tefillah. Like it says, Ashlekachti miyad b'chili b'tfilusi b'koshusi. It says over there that Yaakov said that he acquired this through his what's it called, Charbi v'kashti, through his sword and his bow, and Chazal explained that means through his tefillahs and his bakushas, through his prayers. So we see that the tefillah has that koyach to be mashpia, then to give us everything that we need. Okay, so I think we're going to stop over here. It's late, and just one quick announcement that there won't be a Thursday share. There's not really any way to do it because we'll be fasting at this time or just breaking our fast. So this week there won't be a Thursday shir, but all the other shirs are as scheduled. Okay, kol tov everyone. Good night. See you, Bez Hashem. See you soon.
Good Nacht. Thank you, Rebbe.
Good Nacht. Kol tov.